Hello, everyone. Thank you for your patience. We are hosting an in-person session of this talk, so people who come to the museum today can also see it live, which explains a little bit of the delay because it's in tandem with our openings. We're getting people situated. For those of you who have joined us in person downstairs in the boardroom, thank you so much for being here. For all of you who have joined us via Zoom from the comfort of your own homes, welcome. Thank you for being here. My name is Dan Humschild. I'm the Education Director at Jewish Museum Milwaukee, and it's very much my pleasure to welcome you to this discussion, Sand and Stardust, Resurrecting Stories Burned by Space and Time, with our very, very incredible and world-renowned guest, Michael Maggen. We will have a Q&A session at the end of the program, so please do submit your questions for our esteemed guest in the chat feature. I'll be sure to filter through those and ask as many as I possibly can at the end of Michael's presentation. You know, I'm very excited about this program today because our museum, of course, is about culture. It's also about history. And this program really combines those things incredibly well, in part because there is this component in which the history that is being talked about today would have been lost were it not for our esteemed guest, Michael Maggen. And so this program is not only about history and the recovery of history, but what the recovery of that history does for our understanding of culture, both ancient culture and contemporary culture, really. So it's a pretty remarkable opportunity for us to share this story with you and to contribute to a greater and more robust understanding of this remarkable exhibit, Jews in Space, Members of the Tribe in Orbit, which is still on display through February 5th. Please come down to JMM if you haven't had a chance to see it just yet. So a little bit about our guest of honor. Michael Maggen graduated from the Bezalel Academy of Art and Design in 1982 and continued to study conservation at the Italian Institute for Pathology of the Book in Rome's Istituto Centrale per la Patologia del Libro. Maybe Michael can say that better than I can because I don't know Italian all that well. In 1985, he began to work as a conservator in the Israel Museum and soon began one of the most important projects of his career, the restoration of the famous manuscript, the Aleppo Codex, a project he was involved in for 7 years. During his many years at the Israeli Museum, Michael took part in preservation of the Dead Sea Scrolls, a rare medieval Jewish manuscript, books, prints, drawings, and much more. In 2007, he was appointed head of the Paper and Parchment Conservation Laboratory at the museum. And before I ask you to welcome him, we have a special opportunity for him to be welcomed by the sponsors of this program, Linda and Eli Frank, and that will be shown via video right now. So please join me in watching that. Okay, Molly,
Dan,
yes,
there was kind of technicalities. I couldn't hear a word.
same. Yeah, Molly, I'm wondering if you might be able to share that again, optimizing for sound and video. For some reason, those of us on Zoom couldn't hear the video.
When you show the video, you have two icons that you have to press on in order to optimize the transmission.
So Molly, if you wouldn't mind trying to share that video once more, that'd be wonderful. So we can all hear the lovely welcome from Linda and Eli Frank.
You know, then it doesn't matter. You can check the Zoom 1,000 times and it will work. And once you present it, it doesn't work.
Absolutely. That's how it goes.
Our guest will be patient and will wait for rewinding. You know what I suggest, Dan? I suggest that maybe we'll start our session, and then before I start my presentation, we'll try again. And if it doesn't work, maybe after the presentation, after the PowerPoint, we'll try to rewind it again.
That sounds good. I think that's wonderful. If you're ready to begin, Michael, I would encourage that. That sounds great.
That's for me. Okay.
Yeah. Let's go for it.
Okay. So, hi everybody from Jerusalem. I'm very happy and excited to be here with you. The project which eventually started nearly 20 years ago, 2003, eventually, the story of Ramon actually started. And, you know, when I first learned that some remnants were found, and I was called to the forensic police in order to help my colleague with the remains that were brought by Rona, the wife of Ilan Ramon, I was so excited that when I met her, and she was already a very famous personality, I met her at the headquarters of the police in Jerusalem, at the document department. I was so excited that I couldn't recognize her. I was so intense by the idea that something was found after that tragic accident. So later on, I told Rona about it, and we both were laughing about how things sometimes turns to be. Anyhow, in order to recall your memories a little bit, I tried to put everything in order, and I'm going to share the screen with my PowerPoint presentation, and we'll start from the beginning. Sorry about that. Another second. And here we start. So before we start, first I have to thank many people who were assisting in order that this presentation could be possible. And just to let you know, I never been in Milwaukee, and the only connection that I have to Milwaukee is through my Harley Davidson, which I know that the engine is made in Milwaukee. So my 103 cubic inches is made in Milwaukee, and I'm very happy about it. I hope that my power presentation will work as well. So the first person that I need to, I'm sorry, something is running too quickly. I'll try again. And it doesn't work as it should be. Just a second. Then I suggest that I'll go out of the power presentation and I'll try to share it again.
That sounds great. Thanks everyone for your patience.
These are actually all the technicalities which to stop sharing. There it is. And share screen. Okay. It's the same problem. Anyhow, I would like to thank, Molly, who she is the curator of that extremely important exhibition. And I would like to thank as well Dan Hamschild, who without him, well, this presentation wouldn't exist. And finally, Linda and Eli Frank, who were supporting this program. And of course, many thanks. Apart that Linda is a very talented writer, and I'm sure you are all familiar with her book, The Charming Little Blonde Girl. Anyhow, you managed to make a beautiful exhibition, and I am, as a person of a museum, I know how hard it's to make an exhibition. And I just went through your website and I saw what you are offering to the public, and it's extremely interesting, especially the geodomes there and their fantastic views and what they can offer as an educational program. So here it started as I wish. I have to thank as well Patty Sherman-Chisler, who is the executive director for this extremely beautiful exhibition. Anyhow, the story of Ilan Ramon started in 2003 with this very famous.
7, we have a go for main engine start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have booster ignition and liftoff of Space Shuttle Columbia with a multitude of national.
This was really a lifting moment in Israel, very talented combat pilot Ilan Ramon was joined the NASA mission in order to be a representative of Israel in space exploration. This was kind of euphoric experience. Everybody felt very proud of him, and all were sharing, the images that he sent from space, and sense of proud was something common in Israel to the fact that he's part of that space mission. This is one of the pictures that he sent, how he described the moment of work during his time in orbit. And shortly after that, after 16 days in orbit, the vehicle had to return to Earth. Eventually, the astronaut wouldn't, a part of controlling the shuttle returning to Earth, everything is controlled from NASA. And they are just supervising that everything is going through the plan. And there was nothing to be worried because it was routinely repeated many times before. Suddenly, there is something that indicates that there's something went wrong, and the telescopes taken by the thermal telescope that were watching the vehicle from Albuquerque realized that there is something bad happening in the left wing. There was excess heat that was rapidly growing, and this indicates that something went wrong. And after, I guess, few seconds, not more than 2 minutes, the contact with the shuttle stopped, and they realized that something wrong happened. Later on, NASA made a big research in order to understand what went wrong, and they realized that there was a piece of lightweight insulating foam, which is kind of thermal isolation between the main booster of the vehicle to the Columbia. And usually in NASA, they call it popcorn because it looks in the photographs like small pieces of popcorn that are falling from the pot down to Earth. But that time there was relatively a big piece of foam that hit the lower part of the left wing, and actually caused a big hole, like I would say a soccer ball, and remove many tiles which should be the thermal isolation of the vehicle. They release later on a representation how the Columbia disintegrated during this. I'm sorry, go back. Eventually, the Columbia disintegrated on line of nearly 4,000 miles from northeast to southwest, and leaving a trail of debris and just nearly nothing was left from the vehicle itself. In order to understand what went wrong, in Cape Canaveral, they free one of the big hangars, and they start to collect evidence from what remained from the shuttle structure. And out of 100 tons of metal, they could collect something like 6 or 7 tons that reach the Earth. And they put everything together. They put everything in order, which is similar to the structure of the Columbia. During one of the search team that brought evidence from the fields where they found things, they suddenly encounter in one small piece of shredded papers, fragments. This was actually 4 months after the disaster. The disaster happened in the 1st of February, and this was found, is a small note here, the 4th of April 2003, and here are the actually the indications on the map, on the topographic map, where they found it. When they found those shredded pieces, they actually didn't link it to the Columbia because what they couldn't read what was written there. It was, of course, written in Hebrew, and the search team, they barely could read, between the shreds, paper shreds, what is written there. But they had luck because there was a small piece of fragment which carried a clue. And if I go back for a second, what? Something happened to my PowerPoint. Wait a second. Yeah. They suddenly found a small fragment that carried the name STS-107. This was the code name for the Columbia. So they realized it was from the Columbia. Quickly, they understood that if there is something that is written not in English, so it could belong only to one of the 7 astronauts on board, which was Ilan Ramon. And later on, when I search, pictures about his activities before he was launched to orbit, you can see that on his right lap there is what they call astronaut crew notebook. Each astronaut is receiving from NASA this kind of a booklet, which helps him to memorize, technicalities which he's using during his mission. And every astronaut is involved in many missions during his stay in orbit, conducting research and also routine jobs. So this was on his right lap, and the remnants probably came from that booklet. They collected the shredded fragments, and they asked from one astronaut named Steve McCain. He was a Canadian astronaut, very friendly with Ramon family. An astronaut is staying in 4 years until he becomes an astronaut, and he's learning in actually kind of an academy for astronauts. And during that time, they start to develop connections with all the rest of the astronauts that were studying exactly like Ilan. And one of them was Steve McCain, who they really developed a very mutual relations. And so in last, NASA told him, listen, take this pack of shredded paper and give it to Rona, Ilan's wife, and tell her that we think it's kind of technicalities that he was using as any astronaut use his booklet. And if she wants, we can make conservation of what remains there here in the States. Rona started to look between the shredded paper, and she said, well, this is not technicalities. Since I see that he is, I see between the shredded fragments that he wrote a diary. And she wasn't surprised because she told me later on that Ilan was a diary person. He wrote diaries when he was in high school. He wrote a diary when he was already in the pilot cadet course. in the Israeli IDF, in the Air Force. And he wrote a diary as well when he became the chief in charge of the very big base in north of Israel, which is called Ramat David. And naturally, he would write a log book about his most important experience, maybe of his career when he's in orbit. So she said, I believe I have to take it with me to Israel, and someone that needs, and the person that is going to restore this needs to, sorry, needs to speak literally very good Hebrew. And she was right. Few months later, she arrived to Israel, carrying with her that important document. And I remember that specific day I was called to the, she decided to go to the, someone recommended for her to go to the headquarters of the forensics department, the document department of the forensic, that she got a recommendation, maybe there they could help her. And once they received the shredded papers, the fragments, they immediately contact me to the Israel Museum. And on the same day, I was I learned about the important discovery. This photograph shows the yellow circle, dot circle shows where the paper already was influenced by microorganism activity, and I was really afraid that biological deterioration could increase the vulnerable paper, and I had to make something very quickly in order to sterilize this action. I took the document, I got permission from the forensic and from Rona itself. I took the document with me to my lab in the Israel Museum. And first I photographed the documents as I received them. They were basically separated into 4 groups, as you can see on the screen. And right after that, I gave it a phase of disinfection, which we use a spatial disinfective material in order to stop the mold activity. Right after the treatment, which takes basically 2 weeks, it stays in a vapor of material which we call time or thymol in our conservator language, and the time actually thymol is enough to actually sterilize any microorganism activity. And you can see these pictures that after the treatment, I'm already observing the pages and looking if there is something different or something phenomena that I have to realize if something happening there, or I have to rethink how to continue the treatment. Then I delivered back the document to the forensic, and we started to you can see a few more pictures how it came to me, and it was, everything was intertwined. The pages were actually shredded and intertwined, in pieces were all over the envelope that it came with. And we had to start a big puzzle. This is just a small example of the word it in Hebrew, ze. To any one of you there in the audience who can read a little bit Hebrew, you can see on the right side of the screen how, to what resolution we had to go in this big puzzle and to bring back pieces to their original locations. Ilan wrote during the time of orbit, he wrote with many types of media. He wrote with what we call astronaut pen. Astronaut pen, and you can Google the AG7, and you can see that you can buy this pen for today for $35, and you can have an astronaut pen. This is extremely successful pen they developed in NASA. They invested approximately $6 to $7 million in order to produce a pen that writes in extreme conditions. You can write it in a condition without gravity. You can write it under the water, on oily surfaces, and it lasts really very long. It has very good pigmentation. You can see the page after the incredible journey that he did to Earth, and you can see how the pen survived. If you want to spoil yourself, you can buy a golden pen, which costs a little bit more, but has the same properties. It's not the only media that Ilan used to write with. He wrote as well with pencil, and you can see that pencil survived the extremely harsh condition. When I say extremely harsh condition, one must understand that first, this is the only example ever exists of any written document that returned to Earth. And unfortunately, we know that there were many space accidents during the beginning of the space research. And this is the first time that a fragile, such delicate material is surviving, such harsh, extreme condition. When the when the shuttle is returning to Earth, it bears velocity of nearly 18,000 miles. And then when it starts to hit the atmosphere reduces the velocity into heat. And on the belly of the shuttle, there are temperatures of around 160 degrees Celsius, which I don't know how to change it into Fahrenheit. Never mind. When there was the accident, the temperature exceeded to nearly 12,000 Fahrenheit. That's what experts from the Air Force unit of the accident Air Force unit, they inform me. And then after the explosion and the impact, the document went into deep freezing. There you have minus 76 Fahrenheit. And you have then something like 64 kilometers of free fall. And then it lies on the Earth in a damp area in the fields of San Agustin in Texas, and waited 2 months until it was found. And this is just a paper. So, when I'm asking science people how come that this kind of fragile paper survives such conditions, they really don't have an answer. So we say he wrote that with pencil, which survived very well. When we look at other programs, space program that are around the globe, we know that the Russians are using only pencils. They didn't invest so much money. A pencil costs, like one pencil costs 20 cents or 50 cents. one of the most important project that was done with forensics with my colleague. I have here a strange message about my Zoom. One moment, I'm going to stop the sharing. I'm going to ask. Can you interfere then? And
Yeah,
say
I think if you just click don't send and click the do not ask me again before you click don't send, there's a little button, a little clicker over on the left hand side.
I see. So send to Zoom.
And then don't send.
Don't send. Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Sure thing.
So, one of the most important project that we did with the forensic was the following case. Part of the pages, we saw that something is written there, but we couldn't figure out what is written because the text, the media faded away. So, but you can see between the lines that something was written there. And the forensic, they have all these high-tech scanners and spatial cameras, which they can scan all sort of different light levels and light frequencies, and they couldn't get nothing out of that of their equipment, and all the time they receive all kind of strange fluorescence, which was the high intensity of ultraviolet that these pages received during the stay that they were left in the field. And the reason that we could diagnose the medias, and he actually wrote in those pages with what we call felty pen. Felty pen, which are very popular, have nice coloring, and our kids are using them constantly. But I'm sure some of you in the audience who receive nice painting of their beloved ones, after a while they figure out that the nice colors start to fade away just in front of our eyes. And the reason is that this type of media is made from, they are not really colors like artist color. They are actually kind of products that are done from the petroleum products, from petroleum industry. And therefore they are very cheap, and they are very also, the price they are very economic, and they are used by nearly everyone because they're so easy and they have so many beautiful colors. However, one of the experts there in the forensic said that he had another idea. He said, maybe we'll take those faded pages after we try with all our other means and it didn't help. Maybe I'll try to scan it. And there is a new program that I just came out of a long course I took in Photoshop. It was the time that Photoshop wasn't so known. And we'll try to see, I can go into the channels of the virtual file and see if I can do something, if I'm separating the image into the basic colors. And you know that in Photoshop, you can take any image and you can look how at the channels, what we call RGB. RGB means red, blue, and green, of course. Here you can see the channels. And he figured out that the most intensive signal we receive in the green channel. So he used a special command in Photoshop which we call it dodge and burn. Dodge and burn, these are actually commands that were developed from the dark room, from the time when we still use the analog cameras, and the photographers used to take the negatives, which before the digital camera, develop the negative, and they could play with the negative in a dark room, and they could increase the light or reduce the light by using their hand, by exposing the light which was illuminated through the negative. And just to show you how once they used to do dodge and burn, these tools are based on the traditional darkroom techniques for regulating exposure on specific areas of a print. Photographers hold backlight to lighten an area on the print, which means dodging, or increase exposure to darken areas on a print, burning, as you see it illustrated in this video clip. However, this command in Photoshop can be used in the channels in order to enhance any unclear image. So once the document was scanned with flatbed scanner, very basic but high resolution, that brilliant photographer went into the channels and enhanced actually the green channel virtually many times until he felt that it was enough for the experiment, and then he combined again the channels to the three channels together, and look what happened. Suddenly the text that wasn't seen appeared to the eye. The problem was that if you look at the text, it's a problem to read it because the signs are not clear. Then they faded, the kind of disperse. We call this feathering effect in conservation. Here comes the expertise and the work of the decipherer of Sharon Brown, who did the work. She actually asked from Rona clear writings of Ilan Ramon, and she was actually doing kind of study how he's doing, the L's in Hebrew, how he's doing the S's, how he's doing the N's, and what she did was something very basic but very helpful. She put a clear film on the writing, and whenever she realized that was an L, of course, this was done on the original, and where she realized that there was an L, she made an L. Where was a K, she made a K. And after she finished 3 or 4 lines, suddenly it popped to her eyes that this was the Kiddush prayer for Shabbat. She was very emotional, of course, because she herself she's kind of a traditional Jew, and that was really a very moving moment. However, with that technique, she could decipher, the text in that page. Now, the question is, why Ilan Ramon wrote the text of the Kiddush? And the simple answer is because he was a secular, and he wanted to, Ilan Ramon went to the space with very clear messages that he had to deliver. He had prepared very well his mission to space. and he wanted to be the first Jew that is doing a kiddush in orbit. And for that, he took a kiddush cup, and he took a Torah scroll, and he took as well a few other important symbols of the state of Israel, the flag of the president. And by the way, when you do a kiddush in orbit, how do you know when is Friday and make kiddush in the orbit? Because every 45 minutes is a sunset and sunrise. So what he had to solve that problem. He went to the rabbi of Houston, NASA, and asked him how he can solve that issue. And the rabbi gave him a very simple solution. He told him, listen, you refer to the time that you launched to space as the time that is in Earth, and when Friday will arrive, you'll make the kiddush. And if you look well in Google, you can find, the video clip how Ilan Ramon is doing kiddush in orbit. Actually, I got one picture for you to show you this the moment that he's doing the kiddush. And as I said, he also brought with him few other important symbols to space. He got a very special permission to carry this small Torah scroll, which was given to him by one of the physicians who work with him on his research in space. You know that every astronaut is conducting kind of research in space. And Ilan was meant to do the research name. The initials for that is MEDEX. MEDEX stands for Mediterranean Dust Experiment. Ilan had to research the phenomena of dust storms in the atmosphere. And later on, the result that he had to accumulate during the mission had to be part of a big experiment, how the dust storms affects the development of deserts on the globe. The problem was that the launch was postponed more than 13 times, and the phenomena wasn't already in existence. So Ilan had a plan B for that. Anyhow, he took the guy who gave him, this small Torah scroll. He's a famous Holocaust survivor named Joachim Yoya, Joachim Yosef Yoya. He actually was taken to the concentration camp to Bergen-Belsen when he was 13. And then when he was in the concentration camp, there was a rabbi there named Shimon Dasberg. He was the rabbi of this town Kroniken in Holland. Later on, he became the rabbi of Amsterdam. But the rabbi saw young Joachim, and he asked him, do you want that to make, you're going to be a bar mitzvah soon, do you want to make a bar mitzvah? And then Joachim asked him, how on earth we can make such important ceremony in this horrible condition? And then Rabbi Dasberg took out from his coat, this small Torah scroll, and he said, well, with this small Torah scroll, we're going to learn your parasha. And that's how they did. And at the end of the ceremony, Rabbi Dasberg told Yoya, you are young and you're going to survive, and you're going to keep, this Torah with you. And we are not sure that we are going to go through this hell. And that's really how it happened. Rabbi Dasberg died in the camp, and Joachim was fled from the camps and came to Israel. Then he served in the Israeli military, became an officer, and later on became a geophysics professor. And when Ilan Ramon once was in his flat, he saw, this small ark with the Torah scroll in. He asked him the story about this Torah scroll, and he was very moved by that. Ilan Ramon was as well, second generation of Holocaust survivor, and it was important to him. And he said in one occasion, I want to take this Torah scroll as a symbol of hope and a symbol of the Jewish people, how they were could keep, their religion when they were in their horrible time. And I want to take it to the highest place which humanity could reach, and to show and to tell this story to all, in order to be unified, around this symbolic icon. So in order to continue with his messages to the public, he took with him as well a replics of a small drawing that he found in Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Museum in Israel. And that was a drawing of a small child named Peter Gantz, who was sent to camps of the Camp Theresienstadt, and he couldn't, of course, the drawing was found later on. Unfortunately, Peter Gantz died in the camp. And in this drawing, Peter Gantz drew himself as if he would be on the moon, how he would see Earth. And that also attracted Ilan Ramon's attention. He wanted to take this replica with him. Many years later, after the conservation of the diary, I was engaged many years with friendship with Rona, the widow, and we were speaking all the time that it deserved the museum should make a kind of exhibition, and it took something like 12 years until the idea came true. But on 2019, we inaugurate an exhibition named Through Time and Space, or in Hebrew, we took what Ilan wrote in one of the important pages, Chai B'Halal, which means live in space. And I just want to take you through this important exhibition, tell you the story of the exhibition, because there in your museum, you conduct, exhibition which has a kind of a different attitude. But look where we were trying to present. The idea was that there are going to be actually 3 items. It was a very cameric and small and concentrate environment. It was completely in darkness, and there were phrases that were projected on the upper side of on the ceiling of the exhibition. In order to go to the exhibition, you have to step inside and wait, something like 3 or 4 moments until your eyes got, you could walk freely there without falling, because we wanted the person to feel like he's in space, and being in space means that your senses are kind of, the balance of your body motion is a little bit disturbed by the non-gravity. So once you go into a dark room, you are not so sure where you are walking. You're walking toward the lights, and but you don't see how you don't see actually your feet. So the three items that we decided to present is the diary itself. Here, few pages of the diary. The Torah scroll that Ilan Ramon took with him, and unfortunately, the Torah scroll was destroyed and probably wouldn't be found. And the third item are texts from early civilization, which are fragments from the Dead Sea Scrolls, about a very important figure named Enoch. Now, entering to the exhibition, it was the first time that the museum actually put projecting titles on the screen. And here, by the way, is the son of Ilan Ramon, who is invited to this is the inauguration day. So this is actually Tal, one of his 4 child of Ilan, and he's approaching the exhibition. Now, the exhibition was, as I said, exposed from the Torah scroll, the small miniature Torah scroll, the diary itself, and this is the fragment of Enoch. So, who is Enoch? Enoch is a very interesting figure in our scripts. Actually, there are maybe 2 times that he's mentioned. One in the Dynasties book, which is the 5th chapter in Genesis, where it says that God took Enoch to him, and he knew Enoch very well. Enoch probably received such an important honor that many of the important figures in our Bible didn't receive, that kind of honor. And he eventually, the big and the important honor that he received from God, to be beside God, intrigued, the researchers, and we believe that Enoch was actually, he was actually the grandfather of Methuselah. He lived something like 350 years and inherited better genes to his son Methuselah, who lived 640 years. And we believe that the origins of Enoch is actually refers to a very ancient king in Mesopotamia. His name is Enmeruki. Enmeruki was the very important and wise ruler of Samaria. And because is not mentioned much, there was very important apocryphal writings about Enoch, and there are actually 5 books of Enoch, which are basically in the Ethiopian Christianity, and the similarities between Enoch and Ilan Ramon are extremely interesting. It seems that they both were the first travelers, the Jewish travelers on Earth. And Enoch was the first one, because in the Apocryphons, it's written that God commanded the angels to bring Enoch to him, and he asked them to take Enoch around the universe, and he commanded him, to write what he sees, exactly what Ilan did when he was in orbit. And after Enoch is taken to this universe walk or tour, they bring him back to Earth, and they tell him to spread what he wrote to tell the people what he saw. and then they take him back to the sky, and he doesn't go, and they don't let him go back to Earth. So Enoch is kind of a very mythical figure in our heritage, and I think there's only one prophet, Elijah, who is known that he raised to the sky with flames and fire, and but we don't hear much about what happened to Elijah later. While Enoch is having a very, I mean, the scripts are telling that he had a very interesting tour, and a lot of descriptions that are that he brings from his universal tours. Anyhow, we saw that, you know, there are a lot of similarities between the fragmentation that those remnants were found in the Qumran, in the Dead Sea, in the Dead Sea Scroll heritage, and the ones that it was similar to the shredded paper that was found after Ilan Ramon, and the description that they both of them are giving to what they have experienced in space. So I was during my talk, I was speaking about many elements of the that are connected to the diary itself, but I missed one important element, which is the conservation itself, which I was involved with, and I prepared a short video clip to show you how it was done in the lab. So I met Sharon Brown from the University in my bed for 5 or 6 sessions, and then there we were organizing the puzzle. She was in charge of putting the puzzle into the original location, and I was in charge of the physicality, how to stabilize those fragments together. Since I had to make photographs during the work itself, I did kind of a short course of conservation to Sharon while I took pictures, and she was assisting me during that phase of stabilization of the pages themselves. As you can see, each time we are putting something in position, we had to glue it with a special small iron, and then we have kind of consulate, is that fragment in that position or not, and that's how the work advanced. Then I started to work on, on the documents, on the pages themselves, that I didn't need to have her verification for the locations of the fragments. Going back to the exhibition that we made in the Israel Museum, I must say that I was very fortunate. I was nominated by our director to be one of the curators. So I'm kind of an example of conservator and curator, a kind of a title that many of my colleagues don't understand, but for the exhibition, I had to adjust as well. I'm very happy to show you the catalog which we made for the exhibition, and if you open the catalog, you have 2 small booklets, one which is similar to the astronaut crew notebook, which is on the left side, where we actually printed the pages, the restored pages on that booklet, and we did nearly this, a very realistic booklet like the one that the astronauts are receiving from NASA. And on the right side, there is the catalog, the written text, which describes the all kind of all the processes that I'm actually writing there about the conservation. My two colleagues for the exhibition, Dr. Adolfo Reutmann, he's the director of the Shrine of the Book. He wrote their text about Enoch, and Hagit Maoz, she is the curator of the scrolls, who wrote another chapter in that booklet. And that's how, when you open it, of course, this can be purchased in the museum shop, and it's we're very proud of the outcome. And in this moment, I would like to thank you for your attention, and I think we can go into the question session.
Michael, thank you so much for presenting to us about your fascinating work. It's really, really remarkable to see what you've done and what you and your team have been able to bring back to life. And before we actually get to the Q&A, I want to give us a chance once more to thank you by first showing this video of Linda and Eli, which was a welcome, but welcome and thank you are very, very similar. So Molly, if you want to give that a shot again.
Thank you.
Molly, can you unmute the video?
Important, and we're so happy. Hi, Michael. We want to welcome you to the Jewish Museum Milwaukee. Your work is amazing, fascinating, and important, and we're so happy that you're able to share it with our community and the world. Thank you very much for this presentation. We look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Michael, we had the privilege of joining you in your laboratory at the Israeli Museum to see how you restored books and articles and paintings. We were just fascinated by it. It was a highlight of one of our many trips to Israel. And I didn't want to leave, but you had to, so I guess I did too. Thank you very much. Sorry we can't be with you for this presentation, but we're in Thailand.
And we may not get up at 1 in the morning to hear it in real time, but that's why there's a recording. Thank you again for joining Jewish Museum Milwaukee and discussing your really wonderful work. And thank you for your friendship.
Wonderful. Thank you, Molly. So yeah, now we'll begin the Q&A proper. And we had a question come in from attendee on Zoom, Jane, and anybody else who's on the Zoom call and wants to submit a question, please do just throw it into the chat box. The chat is a great feature for us to use here. Jane asked whether or not the technology that was used to bring out the writing of the Kiddush has been used again on other manuscripts. Is this a common technique or one that, after its utilization here was deployed again in the future in any of your work?
I'm sorry, Dan, can you repeat it? I was looking at the chat.
Sure.
And can you repeat your question, please?
Yeah, has the technology used to bring out the writing of the Kiddush been used in any other manuscripts?
Well, that's a very good question. Not that I'm familiar with. I haven't heard about it, but I'm sure that after they released the first bird, they probably could practice this on other things, but I haven't read or heard about any publication which using this. It's today, it's something, you know, very, I would say, basic in when you, I would say, enhance photographs of or documents that needs to be enhanced. This technique of working in the channels is today, you know, every lab technician is familiar with.
Wonderful. Okay, great. I'm interested too in knowing a little bit about your perception of the particular significance in the relationship between these stories. You know, the relationship, of course, between Peter Kintz, but especially between Enoch and Ilan Ramon, which, you know, you mentioned as part of the exhibit. I'm wondering what, in terms of your experience with this or your understanding of it, but also maybe what the museum discovered in terms of people's perception of the meaning and importance of the relationship in particular between these two stories, these two, you know, Jewish astronauts.
I think I was expecting this kind of question, and I want to just to read you the first chapter, which my colleague, Dr. Reutemann, wrote in the catalog. I think he wrote so beautifully that I can't put it in my words in such exact in such way. So he wrote like this: it is not readily apparent what links the crew notebook of Israeli astronaut Ilan Ramon to Enoch Scroll, one of the earliest Jewish spiritual treasures, and yet an examination of two texts reveals that they have much in common. Both protagonists can be considered the first space travelers of their kind, and both texts feature a first-person account of a visit to the cosmos, one at the dawn of history and one at modern era.
And I'm wondering, do you think that this particular exploration, I guess either the reflections of somebody like Ilan Ramon or what we know about this, you know, beautiful story of Enoch, do they reveal anything to you about, I guess the question that is part of our exhibit too is what it means to be Jewish, right? The relationship to the heavens, the relationship to that which we cannot grasp seems to be part of the story of Judaism. But I'm wondering if you can share any insights that you have about, in particular, these two individuals who at the dawn of time and in the contemporary moment reached well beyond any of our imaginative grasps.
I think that one of the missions that Ilan Ramon was stating it was important for him to deliver is the quest for scientific research, being always exploring the real truth and sharing this with people. So I think that in both cases, you have kind of some similarities between the story of how people are, I mean, because their experiences and because they were chosen and because they were in the right place, in the right time for certain moments, they could deliver from, you know, the very exciting visions that they were that they saw, and I think that this is the reason that Ilan Ramon took this. He insists to took those symbols and those items with him to space. He wanted to he felt like a representative of the Jewish people, and he saw that while delivering this content, he can get to people to be in a higher bond than in regular cases.
It seems too that both missions in some ways are then similar, right? Enoch is this sort of what could we say, a travel writer, an early travel writer for God, as a way of helping people relate more clearly to this divine energy or the divine universe or something like that. And then Ilan Ramon, of course, has this same, as you're saying, sort of points to the same relationship. And in some brief moments I've seen, he has said things like, from space, there are no boundaries, there's no borders, there's no reason to be separate because we're all one, right? So it seems that there's a similar message going on between the two of them.
Yeah, when we did the exhibition, we always told our visitors that the exhibition is not about the people. The exhibition is about what they sense and what they wrote about their experiences. Yeah, we don't want to make kind of we didn't make from Ilan a hero, yeah, a celeb. We were concentrating on the content of the information that he was delivering. Not many people realize, but he, as a young pilot who saw death few times really very clearly, once he had a collision with another aircraft and he could get out without, thanks God, without any harm. And there was another case where he was the last aircraft to attack the Iraqi nuclear installation. He was exposed to AAA threat, so it was really something that he was aware of, and also going into space, it's also a risky experience. And he mentioned in his writings that he was corresponding with Professor Leibovich, the philosopher, and he was asking him, is being a brave is something that you should die for this? Worth dying? What is our purpose in our life? What courage means? He was touching very basic question of existence and asking them as a young person, and he wanted to get answers from maybe the most moralistic figure that was in that time. So I think that figures like Enoch or figures like Ilan Ramon are role model for our existence, and they are kind of I think that they show us what's really spirituality means.
Well, thank you so much for sharing those insights, Michael, and thank you for sharing all of this information about your work and the stories of these, these, I guess we could say, vessels of a greater purpose, a greater imagination, a greater pursuit of what we might call truth or divine truth, potentially even, right? So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. We'll have to wrap up the program here, but I think that was a wonderful place to stop. And I just want to remind everybody, sorry about all the background noise here. Our museum is getting very busy. You should all come down as well. Come on down and see Jews in Space before it closes on February 5th. Just want to remind everybody that we have a couple of virtual global museum passports coming up. The first one is on Wednesday. This Wednesday at noon, we'll be going to the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum. And you can learn about not only its reopening, but we'll be joined by Soviet and Russian experts about the components of the space race from a Soviet and Russian perspective, which is going to be very fantastic. Dr. Colleen Lewis, or Kathleen Lewis, sorry. And then on Wednesday, February 1st, we are also having another Global Museum Passport at noon, which is about the history of Jews in Ukraine, which is very, very important and meaningful, not only to the history of that space, but of course, in the moment that we live in right now, it's important, I think, to all be familiarized with individuals in Ukraine. So thank you all so much for being here.